You can share your screen now. But you can share your screen now.
Right. Okay. Is my screen visible as well? All right. First of all, welcome everyone who is starting their journeys in law. And thanks a lot to Prestige Institute of Management and Research for inviting me. It's always great to interact with students. And to be interacting with people who have just started their journeys in law, it's a very humbling experience. And I also consider this as a task of huge responsibility. So today my agenda is to tell all of you about the major career options in law. So you have chosen a field which offers you n number of career options. Okay. And my intention of this session is to tell you what are some of these options, what are the pros and cons of these options, and maybe this will help you decide what you want to do in future. Okay. Any questions? Either you can let the organizers know and they can put it on the chat box, or if there is a facility to ask questions via audio and video, I'll be happy to take those questions as well. Okay. Cool. So let's start. The first career option which I want to talk to you about is litigation. Now, litigation is something which we all have seen in, let's say, mostly in Hindi Bollywood movies, right? That depiction of law, a lawyer arguing before a court of law. That is something which a lot of us do. Now, what are the pros of litigation? What are the good things about litigation as a career option? One thing is you see the result of what you do. Because you are directly interacting with the clients, okay, and these are your clients, you can see their case move ahead or probably not move ahead. In a law firm, which I'll come to later, that is not always the case, and I'll let you know why. And in litigation, there is literally no limit to growth. So we know the best of the lawyers, the likes of late Mr. Ram Jethmalani or Harish Salve. They can charge literally any amount they want, right? So there's no limit to the monetary growth, okay? Litigation, what are the cons of litigation? The initial salary is low. So whether you are in, let's say, courts in Madhya Pradesh or you are in Delhi, most of the initial salary is very low, is very less. And in a city like Delhi and Bombay, it can literally mean living a dog's life, which means you have to be very frugal. You have to be very frugal with your expenses. Those are the biggest con perhaps of litigation. Okay. And because there is low initial salary, that's why, things like family, having a family of lawyers, or which means that you already have existing clients or infrastructure that matters. Okay. At least in litigation. Another con is that you have to be available 24/7. So your clients might call you anytime during the day or night. If you're a criminal lawyer, even as a civil lawyer, you will have these emergency sort of cases, and a lawyer has to be available for their clients. Okay. Now, how to start a career in litigation? I can see the room, actually. I can see this seminar hall or the classroom. So I can see the students. I want to know how many of you want to start how many of you want to litigate in future? How many of you have those ideas? Can you please raise your hands so that I know how many of you are interested? Can you please raise your hands? Oh, I can see only maybe a couple of hands there, which is a less number, and that's perfectly fine. Okay. Now, if you're interested to start a career in litigation, and if finances are a problem, as in you can't depend on your family for 3 years, 4 years after graduating from college, then it is always suggested that you work with a litigation firm, save up some money, and then start your career. Okay. Litigation firms. So for example, if any of you is interested, you can Google search Karanjawala and Company. Okay, that's a law firm based in Delhi. You can get to know what sort of work they do, how they take interns, etc., etc. You can follow them up on LinkedIn. You can start getting to know them. And of course, there are many other litigation law firms, but I'm just telling you about probably one of the best. Okay. Now, if finances are not a problem and you want to litigate, this is what is suggested by a lot of people, that you work 1 year with a civil lawyer in a lower court. You guys understand what a lower court means? It's a district court and the subordinate courts, right? And then we have the high court and the Supreme Court, right? So 1 year with a civil lawyer in a district court in the lower courts. Actually, nowadays, you're not supposed to say lower courts or subordinate courts, So, but anyway, so 1 year with a civil lawyer, 1 year with a criminal lawyer, so that you get a sense, you get an all-round sense of what the basic fields of law are. Okay. And then it is easy to shift to an appellate court, which means a high court or a Supreme Court. So from a lower court, you can go to a high court. But if you start your practice in, let's say, with a high court lawyer or a Supreme Court lawyer, then it is difficult to get into lower courts practice. Okay. And when you're starting your career in litigation, you can always think of these 2 years as, let's say, doing a master's program. So don't be in the frame of mind to earn money, but just be in the frame of mind to learn in the first 2 years after graduating for litigation. Okay. Difference between litigator and litigation law firm, I don't think that's that important. Okay. We could discuss it offline as well. Okay. Think of the first 5 years in litigation, things grow very slowly. Clients usually prefer older lawyers, especially if bigger cases are at stake. And that's why you can think of the first 5 years of your growth as, a slow and steady process. Just like someone, who's willing to get into academia would be thinking of doing an LLM and a PhD. Okay. My intention is not to discourage you from litigation, but to present you a true picture of litigation. Okay. Now, tips. What are some of the tips which young lawyers and even you guys, when you start doing your internships, probably at the end of first year or second year? The biggest thing is know your file inside out. Which document occurs at which place, which paragraph says what about the X case. Knowing your file is probably the biggest quality a litigator can have. Why? Because by knowing your file, you are helping the judge navigate through the case. Okay, and that's the most important. Your duty as a litigator is to serve the ends of justice. Okay. The relationships which you have is just as important as your skills. It could be a relationship with your senior lawyers. It could be relationships, let's say, with your peers and colleagues in the firm or in the office you're working at. It could even be, as my fourth point says, the relationship, let's say, which you have with the clerk or the photocopier. These things matter, okay? So have patience and, develop good professional relationships with your senior. And those are not made in 6 months a time, that takes time. So stick to a good senior if you find one. If the quality of work is good, if the senior is a good mentor, then you should stick as well. And so this is for litigation. All right, so I'm done with litigation. If you have any questions with respect to litigation, please note it down. We'll find a way to answer them. Okay, and I could even take those questions over email or etc. Okay. Right, now I want to discuss about law firms. How many of you are interested in corporate law firms, joining a corporate law firm? Okay, can you please raise your hands? Okay, what about people sitting at the back? So people sitting at the back, they have a very old legacy of not really participating that much in the class. What about these students at the back? I don't see any hands there. So I'll ask this question again. How many of you are interested in corporate law? Okay, so again, there are only a couple of people, which is fine. All right. So if your intention is to make it to the biggest of the law firms, which is the likes of Amarchand, Trilegal, Khaitan, Luthra, let me tell you one thing, that there are only 200 to 400 such jobs on offer every year. And there are probably more than 1 lakh law graduates. So even if you're very good, even if you've done the right internships in college, even if you have maintained good grades and you have participated in other activities, done some publications, moot court competitions, then there are only 200 odd jobs on offer. Okay. And one should also keep in mind that initial work at law firms might not be interesting. It can involve just things like filing documents, building template-based contracts, which is not interesting work. Slowly and steadily, of course, it can get interesting. And while I was researching for my book, I wrote a book called Law as a Career, which was published by LexisNexis. A lot of people told me that as interns, you don't really get a reality check of the real work environment. So as an intern, you are there for maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks. You don't get a full reality check. Of course, you should intern. That does not mean you should not intern. But a complete reality check as an intern, you don't really get. Okay. Now, pros and cons of working with the law firms. Of course, salary is with the best of the firms is very high. And even with the mid-tier firms or smaller boutique firms, the salary is higher versus litigation. There is quality training given because your peers and your colleagues are also, basically quality people who have their legal skills right up there. You're working with the best of clients. So for example, the best of the law firms would be working with the best of the companies. And because their standards are high as well, so as a person who's working with a big law firm or a good law firm, you cannot mess up. You cannot afford low quality work. Okay. And then when you, start dealing with, let's say, a merger and an acquisition, then the deals become complex. The range of legal issues become complex. Then you cannot say that, hey, I'm an intellectual property lawyer. I don't know about corporate law work. Of course, you might have team and you might have your colleagues who are there in the IP team there to help you, but you need to be good with all types of laws. You can specialize, but you need to be aware of other types of laws as well. Okay. Some of the cons or the negative points of working with law firms. One thing is in India, especially, a lot of law firms are personality driven. They're not process driven. They're not well run like, let's say, good companies would be. So a lot of ego issues, unhealthy competition, a bit of politics as well. They happen in a lot of law firms. Okay, working timings, they can be crazy. You can be expected to join the office at, let's say, 8 a.m., leave at 2 a.m. When we are very young, we can think, hey, we can do it. So what? But slowly and steadily, as other things also become important, as your, let's say, family become important, then you might not be willing and able to pull off such timings. Okay. And then, of course, it's a sedentary job. If you check litigation, it's not a sedentary job. You have to move a lot across courts, right? A corporate law firm job is mostly a sedentary job. It can play on your health as well, so that's another con. Now, how to do well in law firms? One thing is to deal with the crazy timings issue. You should understand that business moves in cycles. Okay. Just like markets fall up and down, so do businesses. And so does work in law firms. So sometimes there might be periods where the work is less and you can afford okay-ish timings. Sometimes the work might get crazy and you'll have to deal with that. Bonding with the team is really important. That's why in your college, you guys are just starting out college. So in colleges, you would have things like societies and committees and clubs, right? I would strongly encourage you to participate in these things because that is where you start learning about things like team building or communication or how to deal with, let's say, a difficult person, how to assert yourself. So these are like small laboratories, which I'm sure your college will give access to. And when you start working with law firms in teams, etc., if you have done these things in college, it will hold you in good stead. Okay. And be prepared to slog in the beginning. If you are joining a big law firm, then you cannot escape it. Now, success factors. So in success factors, I got very interesting words and phrases from various people. Okay, so when you are an associate in a law firm, when you're just starting out, that's the first position. Being an associate, then you become a senior associate, then you become a partner. What law firms really look in associates is ability. Ability would mean like legal research, drafting, etc., etc. Affability, how affable are you? How friendly are you? How can you mingle well in a team? That is also important. And that does not mean you need to be an extrovert to do that. Introverts have their own personality and their own ways of connecting. Okay, so don't be in that conversation that, hey, I'm an introvert, I cannot be affable. You can be. And availability basically means you have to be available nearly 24/7 again. You know, if your partner calls you at 12 midnight, in most of the law firms, you have to be available. Okay. And then when you move higher up the hierarchy and you are thinking of, let's say, becoming a partner, which can happen 7 years down the line, 8 years down the line, or more. 7 and 8 actually is for the best of the performers or the very few. Then partners, there are 4 types of partners. Okay, a finder, a minder, a grinder, and a binder. Okay, I'll just explain it to you in brief, and then you can do your Google search. A finder is someone who finds clients. That is their specialty. They are mostly responsible for finding clients. You know, that could be through networking, through their already existing contacts. A grinder with a G, that is someone who is really good at work, you know, who's basically grinding day in and day out. You know, they're really good workers. Binder is someone who connects all of these together, who are basically a bit of all-rounders. And a minder is someone who is minding the team. They are good with team management and people management. So these skills become important when you're thinking of becoming a partner. Okay. Right. Again, if you have any questions about doing well in law firms, please note it down in your notebooks. I'll be happy to answer them. Okay. Right. Now, working with companies, and this is usually called, you would hear this term, like an in-house counsel. So for example, the Tatas would have their own legal team, or the Mahindra would have their own legal team. Wipro would have their own legal team. ICICI Bank would have its own legal team. So these are basically when you work in it as an in-house counsel. So just like a company would have a marketing team and a tech team and a sales team, they also have a legal team. Okay. Quick question. How many of you want to work with companies? Oh, the companies seem to be the most favorable of the options. That's interesting. Earlier, what used to happen was in-house counsel, they did not take complex work. They used to just transfer it to law firms. Okay. Basic legal issues they will deal with, but if something complex, then you give it to the law firm. But nowadays, so they were basically like postmen between the company and the lawyer, even with litigators. So if a litigation comes, the in-house counsel would just look at it, prepare the file, transfer it to a good litigator. Nowadays, things are changing a bit. So nowadays, in-house counsels are also handling complex issues, etc., etc. Okay, so the pros of this is that there are better working hours versus, let's say, law firms, but it still can be a bit crazy, which means you are, let's say, coming to your home at around 9 p.m., etc. Okay, in some of the companies. Salary is good. It's very good for starters, but it does not rise as rapidly as in law firms. Okay. And the another pro is if you're interested in business, you also get to understand how businesses work. So you'll be interacting with your CEOs or the CFOs, right? Because of course, if a legal issue comes or if a contract needs to be paid, you'll be, let's say, talking with the HR. So you get to understand how businesses work. What are the cons? That the work is less complex and the range of work is also lesser versus law firms. Versus, let's say, law firms which deal with all types of cases. I'll tell you why. If you are, let's say, with an FMCG company, then you would largely be dealing with issues which are related to an FMCG company. Or let's say you're working with a tech startup, with a fintech startup. Then the range of issues will be limited to what that company can face. But when you're working with law firms, because you're dealing with all sorts of companies, the range of issues is also broad. Okay. And less growth. As I said, in a law firm, the growth can be immense. It can be very steep. In companies, it is slow and steady. Okay. What sort of work do you get as companies? It can involve legal research. It can involve a bit of drafting, that is advisory work. When you're giving, let's say, a legal opinion to your company. Then, of course, there is transactional work. If, let's say, your company is doing some sort of a merger with some sort of a, company, so then it can involve things like due diligence, vetting a lot of agreements, handling negotiations. That is also something which, of course, lawyers have to do. And of course, so the skills of being an able manager and a good communicator is important, especially in a company, because you're dealing with different departments. So, for example, the marketing department would be, no, we need to launch this product, or we need to have this copy, this marketing copy out. But as a lawyer, you would be like, no, this can't go because of XYZ reasons. So there is a bit of tussle even in the company between the legal department or the marketing and sales department. So you need to be an able manager and a good communicator. Okay. And of course, with any of these options that I'm talking about, legal research, legal writing, drafting, basically being able to present your point cogently. You don't need to be a great public speaker. These hold true for any career option. Okay, so you must develop these skills. Okay, now PSUs, which is very similar to companies, but these are basically public sector undertaking. These are public companies or government companies. Okay. This is also very similar to a company, as I said, right? So the points remain the same. Now, let me tell you something about recruitments in PSUs. For companies, you would get, job openings on various platforms. On Locktopus, you'll find some. On other platforms like Naukri, etc., you'll find companies giving out notifications. Law firms usually, at least for an associate level, they approach directly, but other positions might be advertised. In PSUs, what has been happening in the last 5 years, I think now, is they are taking admissions through CLAT LLM. So there was a Supreme Court judgment which said that, hey, to get into these PSUs, there should be an entrance exam. And these PSUs were like, why to invent a completely different exam of our own? Let's use CLAT results. So CLAT LLM. So whoever does well. So if you're looking to get into a public sector undertaking company, then you should consider taking the CLAT exam, LLM exam after your graduation. And of course, you'll have notifications in newspapers as well because they have to do it. Okay. What are the pros? Of course, job security. In government departments, you cannot be, it is very difficult to be fired. In a law firm, that can happen. In a company, that can happen. In government companies, it is very difficult. And of course, you have a lot of time. You end your work by 5 p.m., like all government offices. And then that means you have a lot of time. So I know a lot of people who join these government companies and they're preparing for civil services, or they start preparing for judiciary. Or it also gives you a lot of time to introspect and retrospect, about future as well. There are multiple allowances. Respect is something which is associated with a government job. All of that. It's good for a study abroad. If you're interested in doing a foreign LLM later on, then this is a good option, because foreign LLM people who are doing the selection, they see these working with the government as a very good thing in your CV. Okay. So they have that sort of a conception. With respect to job satisfaction, of course, you have the CSR mandate, corporate social responsibility. where every company, I think beyond X crore rupees of revenue, they're supposed to give 2% of that to CSR. So if you involve yourself, you also understand that, hey, your company is doing some good work as well. Okay. And that can, if you're someone who thinks from your heart, that can bode very well for you. Okay. Cons, of course, the growth is less, the growth is limited. After a while, you're not challenged. You can be sent to remote locations because these offices can be in remote locations. They're not always in the biggest of the metro cities. And not everyone can deal with the hierarchy and bureaucracy which is involved with public sector undertakings. Okay. Especially as young people and as people who are now used to a very different sort of a culture in schools and colleges and even at work. This can be, the hierarchy and the bureaucracy can be a bit difficult to digest. Okay. All right, now I'll talk about the judiciary. How many of you are interested in judiciary, in becoming a judge? Oh, again, even this seems to be a popular option. Okay, so the first sentence is long. You will not do anything with 1 hour. It is supposed to be 1 year, at least 1 year long preparation you need to prepare for the judiciary. So if you're interested, you can start, let's say, in 4th year or in 5th year. Okay. If you want to give right after college, then ideally start in 4th year. I would not suggest you starting in 3rd year because of 2 reasons. One is this is a marathon. And if you keep running a marathon for 3 years, you'll get tired by the end of it. Second thing is, by the end of 3 years, you should also be exploring other things. Even if you're interested in litigation right now, even if you're interested in law firm, judiciary, whatever, give yourself the first 3 years to explore a bit. Explore something which you're interested in, even if it does not make perfect sense right now. Okay. So, okay, it requires at least 1 year long preparations. Coaching is advisable if you can afford it, if you can visit that sort of a city as well. It is advisable because of 2 reasons. One is you have some really experienced mentors telling you about everything. What are the notifications, how to fill the form, how to prepare. They have, good strategies for you. Second thing is you're also in a classroom, in a coaching institute, competing with people. So you know where you stand. But at the same time, it is not compulsory. There are lots of people who crack judiciary without coaching as well. But I think it is advisable. Okay. Something which I've realized with judiciary preps is you have to be thorough with your bare acts. So as you start your legal subjects, I think you might be having, let's say, the law of contracts. Read it thoroughly. Start reading whatever acts you have in college subjects really, really well. Okay. In mains, what I have realized is, so we did a lot of interviews with judiciary toppers for Loctopus. And I had the privilege of meeting some of them as well. And when I saw their handwriting, it was unbelievable. So many of them had such good handwriting. So just like this typed out text on my screen would be very visible to you, right? I mean, it is very legible. Their handwritings were nearly as clear as this. Okay, so if one of my cousins would be preparing for a mains exam, I would really suggest them that, hey, of course, everything else also matters. It matters a lot, but work on your handwriting as well. Okay. Pros, of course, there's a lot of respect. There's a lot of responsibility. You are the person who is responsible for justice being done for a lot of people. Huge, immense responsibility. What are cons? A couple of big cons are that you get sent to remote locations. Okay. You will have basically nothing there. So if you can deal with it, great. Otherwise, rethink. And there is less social life. So judges are told to maintain a less sort of a social life because their decisions should not be seen as influenced. They are told that, hey, maintain a low profile. Okay. If someone invites you for a function or a party, you will have to say no. Okay. Ideally. All right. Now I want to talk about IP law firm or intellectual property law firms, because this is a very specialized area of law. And just like corporate law firms, there are many IP law firms which can afford you good enough opportunities. Let's see if anyone is interested in intellectual property, or anyone who wants to get into intellectual property or let's say tech related laws. Please raise your hands. All right, I can see a couple of hands right at the back. Okay. All right. So I want to, let me start with the pros. You're working with creative people, right? You're working with business people. You're working with artists, music composers. So for those of you who are interested, who relate to themselves as creative people, this could be a good avenue, right? It is a white collar practice. By white collar practice, I mean something like a criminal law. You are basically dealing with everyone. In an IP law firm, you are largely dealing with, the top end of companies and, even startups. So it is a white collar practice, and it is a very international practice, because let's say you are taking a trademark for your client. They might say that, hey, I need this to be registered in Singapore as well, right? Or if you're filing a patent application, let's say in India, they might say, hey, I need a protection in US as well. And then it would mean you, let's say, talking to the US lawyers, or you talking to, it could be even a client based in the US who wants a patent in India or who wants a trademark in India. So it's a very international practice in that way. And many emerging areas of law, like tech laws, cyber laws, artificial intelligence, blockchain, they're sort, or even let's say sports law or fashion law, they have close connections with IP law. Okay. Some of the cons are that versus corporate law firms, the salary is less versus corporate law firms. Let's say in the best firm, IP law firm in India, let's say in an Anand and Anand, if Amar Chand is paying 1.4 lakhs a month to the associate, they would be paying something like 70,000 per month. Okay. And another big con is that knowledge of other areas become limited. That happens, of course, with any sort of specialization, but especially for an IP law firm, because if you start with an IP law firm, your knowledge of other areas, of course, will become limited. Specializing versus generalizing has its own pros and cons. Okay. Now, academia, of course, I don't need to tell you a lot about academia, because you'll have your professors who can tell far better than what I can. But this is what I found from my book, and I think I should tell you. See, when I was writing my book, I was wondering that, hey, as an academician, what else would someone do other than preparing for classes and teaching classes? So there is actually a lot of other work. If you want to be a quality academician, a lot of your time should be invested in research and writing and publishing papers, because you are not just responsible for delivering knowledge, communicating knowledge, but you are also responsible for generating new knowledge, which happens while you research and you write. And in many good universities, especially abroad, they say something like publish or perish for academia. If you're not publishing quality papers, you will perish. Your career will die down. Okay, so research and writing is a huge element. Evaluation and ratings, for exams, tests, etc., and a lot of administrative work. I know a lot of faculty members do not like academic work, but or administrative work, sorry, but that's a reality. A lot of them have to do, and some of them enjoy as well, actually. Okay. The biggest pro, excuse me, is the sort of calm and freedom that you have, excuse me, and that you are dealing with a young space. So dealing with students like you, trust me, it is very inspiring. It is very invigorating, because, as someone senior, that you can influence young lives in a good manner, and dealing with the young spirit is very energizing as well. Okay. And of course, you're adding to a body of knowledge, especially if you're doing your research and writing well. So these are the biggest pros. And calm and freedom, I mean, college spaces, research spaces are made that way. They are designed that way. Unless if you compare it with, let's say, a law firm or a company, the work environment can be slightly, I would say, competitive. Okay, more competitive than, let's say, an academic environment. Cons is that it is not as lucrative as a corporate job. It is definitely lucrative, but not as lucrative as corporate jobs. Okay, this is about academia. Now I'll quickly cover NGOs, and then probably we can take 1 or 2 questions. How many of you are interested in NGOs, working with an NGO or a research organization? Any of you? Oh, okay. Okay, there are some of you who are interested. See, the work of an NGO, it largely involves research, advocacy. When you're, advocating for a certain cause, it can involve a lot of things. It can involve dharnas. It can involve coming up with a research report. It can involve coming up with a campaign or a survey, or filing a PIL, etc., etc. Okay, and then of course litigation. If you're defending human rights issues, then you would be litigating on behalf of people or on behalf of organizations. Okay. Of course, the pros is that you do matters close to your heart and you're making a real difference to people's lives. But let me also tell you that sometimes the results are not immediate. The fight is very long for human rights defenders. Okay, so don't expect results to be immediate. Be there for the long haul. And of course, in NGOs, the job is not high paying. And according to me, a high paying job always does not lead to, a low paying job, you can always adjust to a low paying job. If you keep your expenses low, if you are in those sort of cities or places, a high paying job is not the be all and end all of a good career. Okay, so this is the last thing, LPOs or legal process outsourcing. Nearly 7 or 8 years ago, or at least a decade ago, LPOs used to be a very popular thing. They had recently come to India. Now I think the craze has died down a bit. How many of you are interested in LPOs, working with LPOs? Okay. Okay, just one. Okay. Cool. The pros of LPOs. So basically, I'll tell you what LPOs do. LPOs take work which a US law firm or a US company would need, or a UK based or a Europe based company would need, and they do it in India for a lesser price. They're not like BPOs. BPOs is very different. Don't confuse LPOs and BPOs. But yes, LPO work can tend to be repetitive and very detail oriented, because this is the work which they don't want to do. And they're giving it to Indian lawyers so that we can do it for cheaper price. Okay, but it is not like BPO also. Okay, so the pros are the work hours are fixed and regular, just like companies. Okay, so mostly it is like 10 to 6, regular work environment. Growth, if you're interested, if you're good, in 3 or 4 years, you can reach the manager sort of a level, which is good. And the salaries are decent. I think I'll need to revise this figure now. This would be closer to, let's say, 25 to 35,000 per month. Okay, which is decent for a start. But let me tell you the cons as well. Do not work in LPO as your first job. Do not do it, because then you get categorized as that, hey, this person is an LPO person. Getting into good litigation offices or good law firms will be very difficult. You can take it as your second or your third or your fourth job after spending some time in litigation or law firms or companies. Do not take it as your first job. The work can get a bit mundane and repetitive. As I said, the things which you'll be doing are the things which, let's say, the UK and the US lawyers, they don't want to do. And because you are dealing with their documents, their laws, you also tend to lose touch with the Indian law. Okay, so these are the pros and cons of LPOs. Yeah. Right. Then guys, this is what I had. There are, of course, other career options as well, but because of time related issues. So there is tax law, there is legal journalism that you can do. If you're interested in entrepreneurship, trust me now, that field is wide open as well. I hope I've said tax law, right? Tax law, ADR is there, alternate dispute resolution. So arbitration, mediation. You can check some of the articles that are published on Octopus and on other sites as well. Keep this research going. The career journey is not a straight line from A to B like this. It is always convoluted and twisted. Okay, so you'll move like this. Okay, you'll come. So don't expect it a straight line. Be sincere. Keep experimenting. Work hard. Enjoy your college life as well. I know we all are here to chill as well in college. But one of the best advices which I heard was, it is okay to chill away a weekend. It is okay to even chill for an entire month during your holidays, but don't chill away your entire years. And okay, I'll chill away the entire third year. Please don't do it. Okay. With that, all the best to all of you for your college. Do well. And any questions, I'll be happy to take 1 or 2 questions, either on the chat box or if students want to come on audio or video. I'll be happy to take a couple of questions. Yes. Thank you.
First of all, good afternoon, sir. And
yes, good afternoon.
And so thank you for writing the book Law as a Career. I read it and it was really a helpful book for us. So the one thing which I wanted to ask is how we as a non-NLU students can compete with the ones who are in NLU, because eventually we are going to compete with them. So what is the basic roadmap we should follow, like the things which we should have in our arsenal to, stand on par with them?
Right. Brilliant question. Your name is?
Yes, sir.
Your name is?
Sir, Mudit Saraswat.
Okay. And Mudit, I saw you were really active as well. I saw you were raising hands and you were taking notes as well. So good to know that. That's the first step, being sincere. And by the way, I'm leaving my email ID as well. So if you have any further questions, any of you can contact me. But Mudit, especially you, I saw you were really sincere. Okay. So if you have to compete with NLU people, how should your 5 years look like? Okay. The first thing is, please be sincere about your academics, your classes, your exams, and your grades. If you get bad grades, it is not the end of the road. It is, you can still have a great career, but it does not harm to have great grades. It can help you anywhere. Okay. So be sincere in your class. A basic thing which you can follow is, when you are in a classroom, your 100% attention should be with your class, right? First thing, have good grades. At the same time, let me repeat, it does not mean that that's the end of the road, okay? Second thing which you should definitely focus on is internships. Getting good internships, doing well in internships, and maintaining your contacts with the people you intern with, right? Every vacation that you get, which is 4 weeks or more, you should definitely intern. So whether it is 5 vacations that you get in 5 years or 10, that depends, but definitely intern in every vacation. Okay. How to get an internship, I've covered it in my book. I'll be happy to do a session, if you guys want as well. Okay. That is very important. Third thing would be your achievements, like publications, moot court wins, or, at least if you're making to the quarterfinal levels, okay. Moot courts, publications, these sort of things, okay. Why it matters? Because let me tell you, everyone, that what a recruiter fundamentally is looking for is someone who is intelligent and hardworking, someone who has got good research and writing skills. That is very important, okay. And someone who can speak cogently. You don't need to be a great public speaker, but you need to put your point across in front of a judge, in front of a client, in front of your colleagues, etc. So if these 3 things are there, okay, 4 things: ability to read really well, read analytically, read well, which you will get through practice as well, as you read case laws, as you read legislations, other articles, right? So reading, writing, research and writing, speaking. See, these are very fundamental meta skills. Can seem very broad and basic and obvious, But if you develop these three, and why was I saying mooting and publications? Because publications tells the recruiter that here is someone who can research and write well, right? So good grades, internships, publications, and moot court wins. Then even other activities. Don't do everything for your CV. Actually, don't do anything for your CV. Do things which you are interested in and which you can see will mean your growth as a person. It could mean doing debates, MUNs. It could mean a vacation where you are not interning, but you are doing some, let's say, additional course. Okay. So feel free to explore as well. Exploration, at least till the first 3 years, at least the first 5 semesters is very important. Explore freely. Okay. You guys are so young. Okay. Explore. So publications and then, these sort of activities, it could be becoming the convener of your legal aid society or the moot court society or any of these things. So, these things also matter. They develop your communication skills, your leadership skills, your people management skills. Okay. And then, of course, there are some tiny skills like how to make a CV, how to make a cover letter, okay, which I cover in my book. While applying for internships, while applying for jobs, these things matter. Mudit, right? Mudit, that's your name? Yeah. Mudit, if you are sincere and hardworking throughout the 5 years, you will definitely have a very good career. Okay. That is about it. That's the fundamental thing. Okay. See, in life or in careers, these basic broad things always matter. Okay. Sometimes we are looking for, let's say, a magic formula or a special pill, some special thing, right? Some secret of success. Actually, there is no secret of success. These things like being hardworking, being perseverant, right? Exploring, these things will always hold you in good stead. Okay. Keep working hard. If you have any questions, you can always email me. You've read my book. Yeah. Do you have any other questions?
Yes, sir. So in particular, for example, in our first year, so what are the things we should focus on? Definitely academics is a part. And for example, in terms of competition, we should be focusing more on mooting or MUNs or exploring things. What are in particular points you could help us or the tips we should be focusing on in our first year?
Okay. So I think you will take at least first semester to get used to the law school life, right? It will be a bit challenging. Laws will be new to you. You'll find it difficult to read the bare acts or the case laws. Sometimes you'll not be understanding. So I think, Mudit, develop a good understanding of the first principles of law is very important. First principles of law are these: torts, contracts, constitutional law, CPC, CRPC. Okay, this is important. And I think if you can develop an ability or an interest at least to start reading and start writing consistently. Okay, the best advice I can give you, Mudit, is start writing regularly. Start writing 300 to 1000 words every week. Get it reviewed. Make a group amongst yourselves, 5 or 6 of you who are really serious about your careers. Review each other's work. Give inputs to each other and probably take some faculty's help as well. If you continue writing regularly, if by the end of the first year you have how many words? 10,000 words written, good, bad, whatever, published, unpublished, doesn't matter. You will be ahead of 99% of the people. Reading and writing, Mudit, is crucial. All lawyers have to read a lot, write a lot. Lawyers probably, I've written this in my book, lawyers probably write more than journalists or even professional writers, right? That is the biggest advice. Of course, do your internship whenever you have a vacation. In first year, even if you don't do any moot, any publication, that is completely fine. If you can, then that's good enough. Okay. And yes, spend time exploring. Do what if legal aid society is interests you, do that. If let's say if you have a cultural society or a writers, whatever club, it depends on your college. So, what all do we have? So moot court society, just explore widely and keep working hard. Okay.
So one last.
Yeah.
I go like a little sector specific. In litigation, are there any works in the corporate firms for litigator also?
Yeah.
Because as you said, it takes time to establish yourself and other things.
Mm.
So at one point or another, you need a financial assistance
Yeah.
or a kickstart. So are there any lucrative things which we can do in the beginning as a part-time or in the start before setting us up?
Yeah, great question, Mudit, and you can start doing this right from now, which is earning. Even a student can easily earn 5 to 10,000 rupees every month if you know the right skills and if you know the right platforms. As a litigator, if you're not earning enough, there can be two things. One is the senior lawyer can allow you to take independent cases. So before joining a senior lawyer, you can ask them, sir, what, or ma'am, what about, will I be able to take independent cases? Okay, that can supplement your income. Second thing is, of course, you can take freelance work. So let's say if someone needs a contract to be drafted, or it could be a corporate client, it could be small companies. Okay, you can take their work, and that can always happen. And nowadays there are lots of freelancing opportunities available on platforms like there is freelancer.in, there is upwork.com. I don't know. Sorry?
Fiverr and other things.
Yes, exactly. So those sort of things also have law related work, and even as students you can start with very basic legal research and writing work there. Okay. Yeah.
That's a one thing.
Mudit, feel free to ask. I'm there till 12:50. Yeah.
In house counsels you talk about, I had a very brief idea about that previously. So in regards of litigation, so do they also have the litigation work also? For example, I'm doing a BLL. So can I also apply for an in-house counsel and do litigation?
Can you come again?
Sir, in-house counsel jobs, for example, any company. So is there also litigation work? Like, will they hire a litigator also? Because I'm not doing a BBLLB, which will help them in a corporate way or any other management way.
Yeah. See, what happens is, as an in-house counsel, when you're working with a company, you're not supposed to litigate actually.
Oh.
Because there is some sort of a Bar Council of India rule as well around this. What happens is, if the company wants to litigate, they will hire a lawyer, they will hire a litigator, an advocate. Okay. And that for that advocate, the in-house counsel might be doing some research, or they might be talking to each other. Okay, this is the strategy we are going to follow. Okay, this is that. Okay. But the person working in companies, they don't litigate. Okay. That was your question, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, as a litigator, because the Bar Council of India also has a rule about advertising. You don't see boards of advocates or lawyers hanging out there, advertising them. So how do you put yourself out there? Like, a normal thing is different, but like out there, so people know, because you cannot get big cases overnight and other stuff. So what are the small things or the big things which we can do?
Brilliant question, Mudit. So see, if you talk to a senior lawyer, what they would tell you is that they get their cases, and they have got their cases through word of mouth always. You do a good case in a court of law, the judge notices you. The judge would say, counsel, which college are you from? Which year did you graduate? Oh, your arguments were great. And then the word spreads. It's a community after all. Your seniors would be congratulating you, some others would be congratulating, and the word spreads slowly and steadily. Oh, you won that case. Oh, the judge praised you, right? So the good work spreads. That is first, word of mouth. Nowadays, especially, for you guys, if you have a good, let's say, a LinkedIn profile, a Facebook profile where you're showcasing your work as well. Okay. I know of people who are getting work through these platforms, through, let's say, a LinkedIn profile, or like you were talking, right? Fiverr and Freelancer, Upwork. So these sort of things are also working. And see, it's a slow process. Not if it's 100 crore rupee case, or let's say if a person has taken land worth rupees 2 crores and they want to find a litigator, they'll find someone who's experienced, right? Because a lot is at stake. But yes, slowly and steadily, young people also, they can build their profiles. The good word about you will spread. And again, if you're hardworking, if you're sincere, a lot of people think of networking as a bad thing, as anti-credit, as anti-merit, sorry, that, oh, that person got internship because of their contacts. That person got job because of their contacts. As if contacts is a bad word. Contacts is important. It is how work happens in companies in real world. It is a part of merit. Developing contacts, building them early is a part of your merit. Okay, that will also help you in as a litigator. So I know some people who would visit, let's say, industry bodies related seminars. So for example, let's say there is a real estate seminar happening. They would go there. They would develop contacts with builders. Okay, so it's not a straightforward process. It is challenging, but these are some of the things which you can do.
And so in terms of internship, as you said, for example, we are from a non-NLU college. So for example, to get an internship for big lawyers or advocates, because for them, they will prefer an NLU student over us, or one from SLS Pune or other one. So is there any way we can make us shine out of them? Because in a 1 or 2 year period, I don't think we can do much about that, like creating a really good CV and all. So is there a way, or we have to wait for a 3 or 4 year time to build up for something else?
See, I think there is enough opportunity for everyone. Okay, for everyone who's good, by the way. Let me correct myself. And yes, you will be competing with NLU students as well. Both things are true. There is enough opportunity, and you'll be competing with NLU students. I think to make your standout, Mudit, again, it's a simple process, but it's not easy. You work on your writing skills, you work on your research skills, you work on whatever skills, as you move ahead in your journey, you'll get to know what these skills are. And what will happen is you get an internship and you're given a small piece of work, research work, small piece of drafting work, let's say. And when you do the work, they will be like, oh, wow, this is brilliant. Who made it? Who did it? And then they will start giving you more work, extra work. They like your work by the end of the internship. And that's why, I always tell students, once you have got one internship, it could be an NGO, it could be one good internship. It can take care of all your internships if you're good. How? If you get an internship with a district court lawyer, that person would definitely have contacts in the High Court or the Supreme Court, right? Some contacts in the nearby High Court or nearby law firm. So your second internship is confirmed. That office would definitely have contacts with other people, with even, let's say, a mid-tier law firm, right? So if you do well in your internships, this very nice cycle can start going on. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Those are my questions. Thank you for answering.
And and you're welcome, and great questions and great to see your sincerity and curiosity. If you maintain this attitude also, Mudit, of curiosity and of sincerity, you're already ahead of many people. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you
Yes,
for
hi.
having questions. Sir, my question is, can you please brief us about the JAG as a career option in law?
JAG, Judge Advocate General. See, the thing is, Judge Advocate General, I actually don't consider judiciary or Judge Advocate General to be career options. I'll tell you why. Because these are essentially entrance tests which you have to clear. Okay. The competition for judiciary is like only 1 out of 100 people will make it. If you check the classrooms which you were a part of in your school, you could say that, hey, I'll come third in class out of 50 students because of your hard work, intelligence, etc. But coming 1 out of 100 is also a matter of luck, okay, for judiciary. And the same is true for Judge Advocate General or JAG. JAG has probably 4 seats or 5 or 6, 7 maximum, right? 8 seats every year. So see, if I were you, I would be, even if this is your interest, keep this as an interest, don't discard it, but prepare for other things as well. Prepare for, as in develop an all-round skill set of research, writing, drafting, right? So that you can opt for other jobs as well, but not just this, okay? Because it's just an entrance test after all. Okay, guys, I'm really sorry. I'll have to take your leave now because I have to go somewhere at 12:55. So it was great interacting with all of you. And again, once again, thank you to Prestige Institute for having me. I've put in my email ID. If you have any questions, please do ask me.
Thank you so much, sir. So, Prestige, I would really like to thank
Okay, I think there is again a bit of an audio issue, which is completely fine. Again, I would like to take your leave. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you for some of the brilliant questions. It was great, interacting with you, and thank you once again for this opportunity. I really like doing these sort of sessions, and yes, thank you for this brilliant sort of a note which you have prepared. I'm honored with this gesture. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. And goodbye.